Have you ever found yourself lying in bed late at night, wondering if some of the things you used to do without a second thought might not be so harmless anymore? Maybe it's something you've done your entire adult life, quietly, privately, like brushing your teeth or checking the locks before bed. But now that you're older, something feels ... different. Maybe the energy isn't the same. Maybe the recovery takes longer. Or maybe you've started noticing odd symptoms you'd rather not talk about: fatigue, discomfort, even trouble with intimacy. If that sounds familiar, don't worry, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not doing anything wrong. But what if I told you that after the age of 60, certain habits, especially ones involving solo sexual activity, can have hidden consequences for your health? Today, we're going to have a real grown-up conversation about masturbation. Yes, that word still makes some people flinch, even at our age. But it shouldn't. There's nothing shameful about understanding your body, in fact. It's one of the best ways to stay healthy, especially as we age. However, there are some critical things you need to know, because certain masturbation habits, if ignored, can silently harm your urinary health, your sexual function, and even your heart. I'm going to share with you 4 common mistakes that urologists say men over 60 often make, not out of carelessness, but simply because no one ever told them otherwise. This isn't about judgment. This is about knowledge. And knowledge, especially after 60, is power. The power to protect your body, preserve your energy, and feel confident again in your masculinity. So let's begin where it matters most. With your body's signals. Have you noticed that it takes longer to get aroused these days? That erections don't come as easily, or that you don't feel quite as satisfied afterward? That's not your imagination. It's biology. After 60, testosterone levels decline, blood vessels lose elasticity, and the nerves responsible for pleasure become less responsive. So what does that mean? It means that if you're still treating your body the way you did in your 30s, fast, rough, or rushed, you could be unknowingly stressing your prostate and blood vessels. They can handle. The first mistake many older men make is being too forceful, too intense. Whether it's using too much pressure, overstimulating one area, or rushing through the act to get it over with. This approach can actually cause microtraumas to the urethra and prostate. These tiny injuries might not hurt in the moment, but over time, they can contribute to chronic pelvic pain, difficulty urinating, and even sexual dysfunction. Your body at 60 needs a gentler, more mindful approach. Not because it's weak, but because it's wiser. Think of it like a classic car. You wouldn't slam the pedals or rev the engine, you'd treat it with care, attention, and patience. That same principle applies here. Now, some men say, well, I only do it once in a while, so I'm sure I'm fine. And that brings us to the second silent mistake: ignoring frequency and timing. You see, after 60, recovery time between sexual activity matters more than ever. When you're younger, your body bounces back quickly, blood flow returns, hormones reset, muscles relax. But in your later years, your body's healing pace slows down. If you're masturbating too frequently, say out of boredom, loneliness, or habit, without giving your system time to rest, you're putting quiet strain on your heart, your nervous system, and your pelvic floor. A lot of men don't realize this, but the act of ejaculation, even alone, triggers a cardiovascular event. Your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure rises. Your body uses a burst of energy similar to moderate exercise. And if your heart isn't in peak shape, or if you already deal with conditions like hypertension, diabetes, or prostate enlargement, this small act can feel more taxing than you think. It's not about quitting, it's about balance. If you're doing it daily or even multiple times a day, that's a sign to check in, not just with your urologist, but with yourself. Are you doing it for pleasure or out of habit? Are you listening to your body or ignoring what it's trying to tell you? Another reason this matters: over-masturbation at this stage in life can contribute to something called sexual fatigue. It's a real phenomenon where the brain becomes desensitized to natural stimuli. In simple terms, your body gets so used to a certain kind of stimulation, often quick, repetitive, and highly visual, that it begins to ignore or diminish the signals that would normally trigger arousal or pleasure. This can make real-life intimacy harder to enjoy, and it can slowly rob you of the emotional connection that makes sex meaningful. Not just mechanical, And that leads into something else many men don't talk about: the emotional impact masturbation after 60 isn't just physical. It's deeply tied to how you feel about yourself, your aging body, and your place in the world. Some men use it as a comfort, a way to relieve stress or loneliness. That's okay. But if you find yourself feeling guilt afterward, or if it's the only kind of release you experience, it's worth reflecting on. You deserve more than a habit. You deserve connection, whether that's with a partner or simply a deeper understanding of your body, your desires, and your needs. Now, before we move forward, I want you to take a breath and remind yourself. There's nothing shameful here. In fact, this conversation is a sign of maturity. You care about your health. You're willing to look deeper. That already puts you ahead of the crowd, because most men never talk about this. They suffer in silence, struggling with pelvic discomfort, prostate issues, even sexual anxiety, without ever realizing that small changes in their routine could make a big difference. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you gave yourself permission to slow down? To tune into what your body really needs, not what you used to do or what the internet says is normal, but what feels right now in this season of your life. That kind of awareness isn't just good for your physical health, it's the key to emotional confidence to do so. We've talked about pressure, we've talked about frequency, and we've touched on the deeper reasons why this matters, not just biologically, but psychologically. There's still more to uncover, and I promise it gets even more practical from here. Let's keep going, because your well-being deserves every moment of this conversation. Now, let's continue this important conversation. We've already talked about the impact of being too forceful and the risks of overdoing it with frequency. But there's another mistake many older men make, and this one's a bit more hidden. You may not even realize it's affecting you until it starts. Interfering with your daily life. I'm talking about ignoring the importance of your mental environment during self-pleasure. Now you might think, what does my mindset have to do with my health? The answer is, more than you might expect. At this stage of life, your brain and body are more connected than ever. When your brain is stressed, anxious, or disconnected, emotionally, your nervous system tightens. Blood vessels don't open fully, muscles clench, and even your hormones, the very ones responsible for arousal and pleasure, can go out of sync. So what happens when you're masturbating? Watching extreme or unrealistic material online, or doing it just to distract yourself from feeling lonely or numb? It can lead to a kind of emotional detachment. You start relying on fantasy, not feeling, speed, not presence, performance, not pleasure. And over time, this pattern can rewire your brain in a way that makes natural, healthy arousal harder to achieve, especially with a real partner or even with yourself in a relaxed state. Urologists and sexual wellness experts call this arousal conditioning, and it's a real issue among older men. The brain gets so used to a certain type of visual stimulation, often fast, artificial, and exaggerated, that real-life touch or emotional intimacy feels dull by comparison. It's not that your body is broken, it's that your brain has forgotten how to respond to what used to feel good. This also explains why some men over 60 find themselves struggling with erectile function, even though their blood tests and prostate exams come back normal. The issue isn't always physical. It's sometimes the result of years of building a pattern that disconnects pleasure from presence. But here's the good news. Just like your brain was conditioned into this, it can also be gently guided out. One of the most powerful changes you can make, and this might surprise you, is to turn off the screen. Yes, that screen. The one you might have relied on for years. Instead, try giving yourself space and quiet. Focus on touch, breath, and sensation. Take it slow. This isn't about abstinence. It's about relearning how to feel. At this stage of life, it's not about how fast you can finish. It's about how deeply you can connect with yourself. That kind of experience doesn't just improve sexual wellness, it improves your mood, your confidence, and your sleep, too. Now, I understand that for many older men, especially those who live alone, masturbation becomes a kind of routine, something you do to pass the time or relieve tension. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's done with awareness. But when it becomes automatic, when it's done the same way every time, in the same environment, with the same mental patterns, it can lose its benefits and start becoming a source of stress rather than release. Which brings us to another danger that's often overlooked: neglecting your pelvic floor health. Yes, you heard that right. Pelvic floor health, you see. Your pelvic floor is the network of muscles that supports your bladder, prostate, and sexual function. It's what controls your flow of urine, your ability to get and keep an erection, and the strength of your orgasm. Most people only hear about pelvic floors when women are recovering from childbirth. But men, especially men over 60, need strong, flexible pelvic muscles just as much. Here's where it gets tricky. If you're masturbating in a tense, hunched-over position, say, sitting in a rigid chair, tensing your legs, holding your breath, or clenching your stomach, you're unknowingly tightening your pelvic floor. And if this happens repeatedly, day after day, week after week, it can lead to chronic tightness. That tightness can cause a range of issues: difficulty starting urination, frequent urges to pee, incomplete emptying of the bladder, and even pain during ejaculation. Now, you might not connect these symptoms with masturbation, but many urologists are starting to see a direct link, especially in older men. Over time, chronic tension in this area can also contribute to something called pelvic floor dysfunction, a condition that's painful, frustrating, and very difficult to reverse without proper treatment. But the good news is, you can start preventing it right now with just a few small adjustments. The first step is awareness. Notice your body's position. Are you sitting hunched over? Are you holding your breath or clenching your abs? Are your thighs stiff or your toes curled? These are all signs of pelvic tension. Try lying on your back instead, or sitting in a relaxed, reclined position. Focus on breathing deeply. Let your belly rise and fall. Feel your pelvic area soften. That one shift from tension to relaxation can make a world of difference in protecting your muscles, your nerves, and your future comfort. And remember, your body isn't something to get through, it's something to enjoy. Especially now you've earned the right to take your time, to be kind to yourself, to explore what pleasure means in this stage of life. That mindset alone, one of respect rather than routine, can transform not only how you feel during the act, but how you carry yourself throughout the rest of the day. There's one more thing I want to touch on here, and it's about the heart, not just physically, but emotionally. Many older men grew up in an era where talking about sexuality was considered shameful or even taboo. You may have been taught to keep things private, to man up, to never talk about vulnerability or desire. But here's what I want you to know. Being in tune with your body isn't weak. In fact, it's one of the strongest, most powerful things you can do. And when you care for yourself, not just your skin or your diet or your medications, but your sexual well-being, you're honoring your entire life force. This isn't about being young again. This is about being you, now strong, wise, and still capable of joy in ways that matter. Because pleasure isn't just for the young, it's for the living. And you, my friend, are still very much alive. So if you've made some of these mistakes, don't be hard on yourself. Awareness is the first step. And now that you know, you can begin making better, more informed choices. You can protect your prostate, preserve your energy, and rediscover the kind of confidence that only comes with maturity. You're not losing your power. You're just learning how to use it in a new, more conscious way. Let's keep going, because there's one final mistake that may be affecting you more than anything we've talked about so far. There's something that often goes unnoticed, not because it's rare, but because so many men simply don't talk about it. And that silence, especially after 60, can slowly chip away at your confidence, your energy, and your sense of masculinity. Let's talk about the fourth and perhaps most dangerous mistake older men make when it comes to masturbation: ignoring warning signs from your body. You see, the body has an amazing way of whispering before it screams. The problem is, most men have been conditioned to push through discomfort, to ignore minor aches, and to tell themselves it's probably nothing. But when it comes to your urinary and sexual health, those little signs, the ones you brush off, could be your body's way of asking for help. Let me give you some examples. Maybe you've noticed that you feel a dull ache in your lower abdomen after you masturbate, or perhaps you've been waking up at night more often to urinate. Maybe you've had a strange burning sensation during ejaculation, or you've started to feel weaker, more tired, and less interested in intimacy overall. These aren't just random changes. They're potential signs of something deeper, like chronic inflammation of the prostate, early signs of erectile dysfunction, or even undiagnosed cardiovascular issues. One of the most overlooked conditions in men over 60 is benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH, an enlarged prostate. It's common, yes, but it's also sneaky. It doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps in slowly, often starting with minor discomfort after ejaculation or a weak urine stream. And over time, if left unchecked, it can lead to bladder problems, recurring infections, and a severe drop in your quality of life. What's more troubling is that aggressive or frequent masturbation can aggravate an already enlarged or sensitive prostate, making things worse without you realizing it. And let's be honest, how many men do you know who talk to their doctor about this stuff? Probably not many. But the reality is, ignoring these symptoms doesn't make them go away. In fact, it often delays proper diagnosis and healing. That's why urologists urge men over 60 to pay attention, not just to how often or how intensely they're masturbating, but to how they feel afterward. Does your body feel more relaxed and calm, or sore and fatigued? Do you feel refreshed, or kind of empty and drained? These are signs. They tell a story, and it's one that deserves to be heard, especially by you. Now, let me be clear. This isn't about fear. This is about wisdom. You've lived through enough by now to know that the best thing you can do for yourself is listen. And when something feels off, that's not weakness. That's awareness. That's strength. Because the sooner you address something, the sooner you get back to living fully. And that's what this conversation is really about. Living fully. Many men ask, should I just stop altogether? The answer is no, not unless your doctor tells you otherwise. Healthy, conscious sexual activity, whether with a partner or alone, can have tremendous benefits, even into your 70s, 80s, and beyond. It supports hormone balance, boosts mood, reduces stress, and keeps the blood vessels in your pelvic region active. But, and it's a big but, it must be done with intention, with respect, with attention to your body's needs, limits, and signals. And that's the heart of it all, isn't it? We're not just talking about masturbation. We're talking about how we treat ourselves, how we carry our bodies, how we care for our health. After 60, everything changes, not necessarily for the worse, but definitely in ways that ask us to slow down, tune in, and be more mindful. You can't brute force your way to good health anymore. You have to listen your way there. So if you've ever felt like something is off, if you've had to pee more often, or you've lost that satisfying feeling after release, or if you've felt more fatigued, more disconnected from yourself, take that seriously, not with fear, but with curiosity. Get a checkup. Ask your doctor about your prostate, your hormone levels, your pelvic health. You have every right to know what's going on under the hood, and you deserve answers that help you feel strong again. I also want to say this, and it might be the most important part of this entire conversation. You are not less of a man because your body has changed. You are not broken. You are not past your prime. You are in a new chapter, one that can be just as full of connection, joy, and yes, pleasure as the ones before it. But only if you meet yourself with the same respect you once gave to others. You've spent a lifetime working, providing, solving, fixing. Now it's your turn to tend to your own needs, and not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually too. Let masturbation and your sexual health overall become a part of your self-care, not a guilty routine in the shadows. Let it be something you approach with presence, curiosity, and love. Because the more connected you are to your own body, the more alive you'll feel in every area of your life. If you've made these mistakes before, you're not alone. Most men have. The key is what you do now, from this moment forward. Down, breathe deeply, pay attention, and most of all, treat yourself with kindness. You've earned that much and more. There's no shame in caring for yourself. In fact, it's one of the most courageous, manly things you can do. And if this conversation resonated with you, if something inside you feels seen or understood, then I want to invite you to share that, not just by liking or subscribing, but by taking one real action today. Listen to your body, notice how it feels, notice what it needs, and start treating it like a trusted companion, not an old machine you're stuck with. Because this body, your body, still has life and it still has pleasure in it, still has power in it. All it's waiting for is your attention. Let's take a moment, you and I, a quiet breath, a little stillness. You've come with me through an open, honest conversation that very few men are brave enough to have, and yet, here you are, listening, reflecting, growing. That alone tells me something important about you. You care. You care about your health. You care about your future. And maybe, just maybe, you're finally ready to treat your body, your energy, and your manhood with the respect they've always deserved. So before we close out this conversation, I want to wrap it all together with something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough in these discussions, and that's recovery. You see, we often talk about action, what to do, how often to do it, what not to do. But one of the most overlooked elements of sexual health, especially after 60, is how we recover. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and hormonally. Because every time you engage in sexual activity, whether alone or with a partner, your body enters a cycle. A rise in arousal, a peak, and then a reset. But what happens if you don't give yourself enough time or the right conditions to fully reset? That's when the problems creep in. Fatigue, low mood, soreness, less interest in life. We chalk it up to age or stress or just one of those weeks, but very often it's a signal from your nervous system that it's overwhelmed, that it's operating in a state of depletion, not balance. This is why recovery matters so deeply. After 60, your body needs more time to replenish testosterone, to restore nerve sensitivity, to repair the microtissues involved in ejaculation, and to reset your mood and motivation. That doesn't mean something's wrong. It simply means your body is working in a different rhythm now, one that requires space and care between moments of stimulation. So how do you support that recovery? Start by staying hydrated. It sounds simple, but your body loses fluids during climax, and even mild dehydration can affect blood flow, prostate health, and hormone regulation. Drink more water during the day, not just afterward. Then there's sleep. Deep, uninterrupted sleep is when your body produces growth hormone and testosterone, both vital to healthy sexual function. If you're staying up late, staring at screens, or falling into restless sleep afterward, you're missing out on the key part of your body's natural reset process. Nutrition matters too. You want to nourish your body with foods that support blood flow, energy, and hormone balance. Think leafy greens, healthy fats, pumpkin seeds, avocados, and berries. You're not just feeding your stomach, you're fueling your recovery. And don't overlook the importance of movement. Gentle walks, pelvic floor stretches, and deep breathing can all help increase circulation in your lower body. Flushing out toxins, reducing inflammation, and keeping your prostate and pelvic muscles active without overstraining them. Lastly, and this might surprise you, practice non-sexual touch. Yes, you heard me right. Our bodies, especially as we age, crave contact. But when every form of touch becomes tied to stimulation, we lose the healing power of simple connection. Try placing your hand gently on your stomach while breathing. Rest your palms on your thighs, feel your heartbeat. Let your body know that you're present, even outside of sexual moments. This builds trust within your nervous system, helping it relax and return to balance more easily after arousal. When you approach your sexuality this way, not with pressure, but with presence, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop chasing release and start experiencing renewal. You stop rushing and start reconnecting. And over time, that deepened connection shows up everywhere in your energy, your sleep, your digestion, even your posture. You stand taller, not because you're trying to prove something, but because you finally feel comfortable in your own skin. And that, my friend, is the true reward of taking care of your sexual health after 60. Not just better performance, but deeper peace. Not just release, but restoration. You may be wondering, where do I even begin? Start small. Start tonight. After watching this, take 60 seconds to just sit quietly with your body. Breathe into your belly. Notice what it feels like. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Not what you're used to doing, not what you think is expected, but what your body, this wise, aging, remarkable body, is actually asking for. It might ask for stillness, or warmth, or sleep, or just a little time without distraction. Whatever it is, honor it, because you've honored others for so long now. It's your turn. And as we wrap this up, I want to remind you of one final truth. Your worth is not measured by your stamina. Your manhood is not defined by your past, and your health, yes, even now, can improve with the smallest act of attention. There are men who go through their entire lives afraid to have this conversation. But you showed up, you listened, you leaned in, and maybe, just maybe, you're ready to try something different, something better. I hope this message gave you more than information. I hope it gave you hope, because it's never too late to feel good again. So if you found value here, let me ask you one small favor. Leave a comment below. You don't have to share your whole story. Just a word, a thought, even an emoji, something that tells the world, I'm here, I'm learning, I matter. And if you'd like more gentle, honest, and empowering content to support your health after 60, please consider subscribing. It helps this channel reach more men who might be struggling in silence, just like you were. Thank you for spending this time with me. Here's to strength with softness, wisdom with courage, and the kind of confidence that comes not from performance, but from presence. You've got this, and you're not alone.